Hello, BookTube. We are continuing with my endless library tour. We are on bookcase number 2, and we have now reached shelf number 3. We are still seated on the floor, but I believe this is the last shelf of bookcase number 2 where that will be possible. And rather than move on, bookcase number 3 is right next to bookcase number 2, and it has plenty of shelves that I can sit down for. But rather than do that, I think I'm just going to figure out how to do this standing up or sitting for the next million books. But first we'll deal with subsection A of shelf number 3 of bookcase number 2. And it's going to be fairly easy because we're going to be able to go through these at a fairly quick clip, mainly because the first half of this shelf is one author. And it's not John Flint Roy. He wrote this, A Guide to Barsoom. That's what this is. This is a paperback guide with illustrations to every detail that can be gleaned from the Martian Tales of Edgar Rice Burroughs. It's a really fun book to page your way through. When I first got it, it didn't have this cover. When I first got it, the first time I read it, decades and decades and decades ago, I kind of thought, well, it's a fun companion to have, but it won't tell me anything I don't already know. If you read the Barsoom Tales of Edgar Rice Burroughs as many times as I have, you start to know all the little details. You start to gobble them up. But sure enough, this had plenty in it that I didn't know. But that's not, John Flint Roy is not our author. Instead, the author is Edgar Rice Burroughs himself. And we have a lot of Edgar Rice Burroughs here to go through. I don't even think this is all of it. I think there's a lot more Edgar Rice Burroughs lurking around. But first we have Tanahar of Pellucidar. These battered mass market paperbacks, that's all these are going to be. Then we have, okay, can we put these together? Maybe? They should be together now, but maybe we can put these together. All right, these are the aforementioned Martian Tales. These old Del Rey paperbacks that were so much fun that I grabbed the whole of them as they were coming out, then got rid of them or lost them maybe to a fire or to a bunch of beagles, and then I routinely get them again. Of course, these are never going to be made again. So you're never going to, if you see them, you should grab them. Although the Barsoom Tales are all online. They're ebooks for all of them. But this is number 1, Princess of Mars. They all have this same look to them. They all have this gigantic logo, Martian Tales of Edgar Rice Burroughs. So there you have number 2, Gods of Mars, very accurately showing John Carter as being buck naked, and the covers just go around like that. Then we have number 3, Warlord of Mars. There is John Carter. He has found a becoming loincloth, and he is with his dog, Woola. And they are fighting a giant insect. But there's also number 3, a second copy of number 3. Just because, let's set these all up and put them all together. Then we have number 4, my favorite of the Martian Tales of Edgar Rice Burroughs. This is Thuvia, Maid of Mars. This gorgeous cover, just amazing. We've got this little guy on the back, this little lizard right there on the back, and the 2 moons of Mars coming up over a city. But that's number 4, and I do not have a second copy of number 4. I have an e-copy that is not corruptible by mice or flood or beagles or anything else, but still. Then we have number 5, The Chessmen of Mars. Not one of my favorite John Carter novels, but I'm going to try to love it more this summer. And I have, I believe, a double of that. Yes, I do. Second copy of The Chessmen of Mars. Then number 6 is The Mastermind of Mars, in which lightning strikes twice and another Earthman comes to Barsoom. He also has superpowers. Edgar Rice Burroughs also forgets that he has superpowers. It's John Carter all over again, only with another guy. And there you have another of Barsoom's white apes. And that is number 6. I do not have a double of number 6. Then number 7 is A Fighting Man of Mars. I love this book. Just love it. I don't know what it says about me that my favorite Barsoom novels tend to center on characters other than John Carter. I don't know why that is. But I love this book. Just love it. And also, I love this picture. Is just terrific for the whole thing. It's just terrific as a computer background. Actually, all these Whelan things are terrific as computer backgrounds. Then we have number 8. Swords of Mars, rather a slight thing, and also a very clear instance, and in a few places in this book, a very clear instance of when Edgar Rice Burroughs simply forgets that John Carter is superpowered. He's an Earthman on Mars, and Mars has a much, much lower gravity, so he can leap enormous distances, he's enormously strong, his muscles are denser. Several of the things that happen in Swords of Mars should not happen. But that's number 8. Then we have number 9, Synthetic Men of Mars. A wonderful swampy cover there. And a double, only this one, instead of having yellow letters for the title, this one has white letters for the title, Synthetic Men of Mars. The whole cover is a little bit brighter. Then number 10, Lana of Gothel. This is also a fantastic book and a fantastic cover. And I only have one of these. I only have one of number 9 that I can see here. And then the final one, John Carter of Mars, number 11, which has one of the most epic covers of them all. Again, you have a Martian city in the background framed by the 2 Martian moons. And here you have our characters. That is John Carter and the incomparable Dejah Thoris. And there is Taras Tarkas in the background. Just fantastic. So that is the Martian Tales of Edgar Rice Burroughs. But it's not the only one, because there are others. These are the ones that were done for Del Rey with Michael Whelan covers. But there were other covers. I have some of those. I have these old Valentines. This is a Fighting Man of Mars with the floating barges, the floating airships of Barsoom. And I have the Gods of Mars. Totally different cover. Very, very science fiction-y cover. And finally, the first one, A Princess of Mars, which is kind of bad. I mean, she's wearing the curtains from the living room, and he's not looking either. He's not looking at you when you look at this cover, but we don't see what he is looking at. So it's kind of a bad cover, but it was this. I believe I only have these 3 from these old Valentines, but we're still not done because Valentine also did the whole set with yet another set of covers. I believe I only have one of these. How I would like to have them all. I only have Swords of Mars. So do I have Gods of Mars, Princess of Mars, Fighting Man of Mars? So I have 2 paperbacks of Swords of Mars. There again are the floating airships of... look at that cover, though. And some of the covers in this set are really good. These old Valentine ones just have the illustration on the cover, and that's all. The newer Valentine ones, the Michael Whelan ones, have wraparound covers, and so do these. These also have wraparound covers, just to get the artist to do a whole painting. I believe that's all the John Carter that we have, but I could be wrong. There could be more. But here we have At the Earth's Core, with a classic Frank Frazetta cover there. We have The Lost Continent, also Frazetta, but in a different artistic phase. We have Tarzan and the Valley of Gold, which is going to strike some of you as unfamiliar, but that's because it's not written by Edgar Rice Burroughs. It's written by Fritz Leiber. A rare example, or a whole bunch of science fiction and fantasy authors at the time and since, who would like nothing better than to write a Tarzan novel or a John Carter novel, and they're not allowed to. Okay, then we have the Valentine copy of... Valentine did a classic, a signature run of not only John Carter, but also Tarzan. They did a signature run of Tarzan paperbacks with black spine mass-market paperbacks with original artwork on the cover. I have a battered copy of Tarzan of the Apes. Look at that. That is also Frank Frazetta in yet a third artistic period in his development. But that whole series is great. I don't have many of them. I have Tarzan and the Golden Lion, where the artwork has shifted to Boris Vallejo. And I have a second copy of Tarzan of the Apes in better shape. But I don't believe I have any of the rest of these. I had the whole set once upon a time, and one of you sang the song of your people and said, "Oh my God, I'll never find these. I love them so much. They gave my life meaning. Oh no, don't worry about me. I'll just sit in the corner and pine for them." But here's my address, just in case, you know. So of course, I sent them away. I boxed them up and sent them away. I haven't found the whole set yet. Then we have these little books from Ace. More Edgar Rice Burroughs. This is Tarzan at the Earth's Core. These are smaller than the normal size mass market paperback, you can see. And all of them exist. All of Edgar Rice Burroughs exists this way. We have okay. We have uh, Phil Farmer, another one of those mainstream science fiction and fantasy authors who would have loved to write a whole shelf, 30 books of Tarzan or John Carter or Carson of Venus, but was not allowed to. But he did write one book, The Adventure of the Peerless Peer, where Sherlock Holmes meets Lord Greystoke. Then we have Tarzan and the Lost Empire, another one of these little paperbacks. We have Savage Pellucidar, one of my favorite Frank Frazetta cover illustrations, just incredible. Also in one of these little paperbacks, we have Tarzan Triumphant, also in one of these little paperbacks. What else have we got here? We're almost out of Tarzan, believe it or not. This thing here is wedged in here. Okay, this is The Moon Maid. Great. In another of these little paperbacks. I don't have all these little paperbacks. I don't have all of any of these sets, except the Michael Whelan Tales of Barsoom. Okay, then we have nonfiction. Now this is my second copy. This is Dick Lupoff. He wrote a book, an appreciation/biography of Edgar Rice Burroughs called Master of Adventure. And it was issued in a mass market paperback with this original cover art. And that was good enough for me, even though I worry about mass market paperbacks. I worry that they'll fall apart. But one of you recently sent me a trade paperback reprint of Master of Adventure, which will not fall apart. That's great. Then we have Savage Pellucidar. Another cover here, another wonderful cover. And I think that's it for Edgar Rice Burroughs. So that's a lot. That's half the shelf. So that gets us well along. Then we will do a block of another author. This is James Blish, who'll be most familiar to most readers, I would imagine, especially in the U.S., because he did the prose adaptations of all the original series episodes of Star Trek. Star Trek 1, we saw them. These things. James Blish wrote these things and made a quite a little tidy pile of money writing those things. And they fell like water in the desert to Star Trek fans in the U.S. who gobbled them up. Just a million stories of little towns, little dry goods stores, for instance. One story that I know for sure, little dry goods stores with spinner racks of mass market paperbacks would get one of these things and it would sell out. When that never happened. Maybe Louis L'Amour, but otherwise no. And routinely sell out, so that person would get 2 copies of Star Trek, the first James Blish collection, and it would sell out immediately, and he wouldn't think anything of it, and maybe neither would his little assistant. And then he would get the second one, Star Trek 2, and it would sell out, 2 copies. And then the third one, and 2 copies would sell out. And by then, the little assistant, wasn't so little, had lots of assistants of his own, would be suggesting that the order sheet that we go over every week for the books, for the spinner rack, what if, when you're checking the boxes, what if for Star Trek 4, which I don't have, oh yes I do, what if for Star Trek 4, which doesn't look like the other, it has gorgeous cover artwork, it doesn't look like just where the point is the number, what if for that, instead of 2, we say 20? He was like, what? Are you crazy? 20 sold. Instantly. Within a week, 20 sold. 50 would have sold. And that was true. That was reported everywhere across the United States. And that redounded to James Blish's credit. But he was a workhorse science fiction writer forever and ever. Had a ton of titles to his name. And I don't know if it's that I first encountered him through those Star Trek books, that I just cannot warm to his non-Star Trek writing, but I believe that's a shortcoming, and I want to keep trying, so I have a bunch of James Blish. This first one is James Blish and Robert Lowndes. This is The Duplicated Man, an old mass market paperback. Then we have James Blish himself, just Warriors of the Day. His most famous non-Star Trek work is A Case of Conscience, and believe it or not, I don't think I have that. Once upon a time, it also had a beautiful Darrell K. Sweet cover, and as a mass market paperback, I had that thing forever and ever, but I don't have it now. Then we have The Star Dwellers. None of these are long. So I could do... then we have Titan's Daughter. All these vintage things by James Blish. We'll see. We'll see if I can, I don't know, warm to him. Then we have Ted White, a novel called Phoenix Prime. Fantastic cover there. Just incredible. Then 2 copies of an older edition of Larry Niven's Ringworld. I really like this cover, and I found this paperback that I found is in perfect condition, but I also have the backup. I also have a double of the same thing that I reinforced because it wasn't in quite as good condition. Then we have the great science fiction writer Clifford Seamack. This is his Talisman, Fellowship of the Talisman, which is, it looks on the surface like your standard fantasy quest novel, but it has several twists in it, as all of Seamack's stuff does. Then we have Piers Anthony. This is the first book in his Zanth series, A Spell for Chameleon. I'm not all that fond of the Zanth series. It wore out. It's a magical world. The world you're going to be able, if you're in America, you're going to be able to recognize the world. Oh no, do I not get a map? Oh no, this first one doesn't even include a map. The map of Zanth is, let's just say it's rather recognizable. And I read this when it first came out. I got this, what was this, in the 70s? In 1977. And I thought it was charming. Almost everybody has magic of one kind or another. Not the same kind of magic. Everybody has a different kind of little magic mutation of one kind or another. But by the 4th or 5th book, it was wearing out its welcome for me. I confess, the first 10 Zanth books, after Spell for Chameleon, I was mostly buying them for the gorgeous covers and nothing else. So one by one, they fell away. They all fell away. And eventually I found a copy of this. And I'm happy to have the first one. I don't know that I need all the others. Okay, then we have, we go from pretty covers to ugly covers, but this is R.A. McAvoy. And this is book 1 of a trilogy, Damiano. I don't have all 3 of these, and I don't have, there was a 1-volume paperback, 1-volume mass market paperback, and I don't have that, even though I really want that one. It was called A Trio for Loot. And this was also, the trio here is Damiano, Damiano's Loot, and Raphael. And that trio was embodied in one hardcover edition for the Science Fiction Book Club. But the Science Fiction Book Club, I'm usually the biggest fan in the world, but the edition they did for the Trio for Loot is so ugly. The cover is so ugly that I cannot bear to have it. I know that's very shallow, but I just cannot bear to have it. So this is the only one I have now, and this is excellent. It is so, so good. I'm amazed that more fantasy fans don't know about this. It's historical fantasy, which is rare. It's not alternate world historical fantasy. It's this world historical fantasy. That's rare. It's hard to do. It's set in the Renaissance. And it stars a young man named Damiano, who is the child of a sorcerer. He routinely speaks, just one of his buddies is an angel, is the Archangel Raphael. He routinely speaks with him. He also speaks with his little dog, Spot, who, thanks to his sorcery, he can speak with his dog. And this first novel is a coming-of-age story. Really, it's Damiano's coming-of-age story. His world collapses. His world falls apart due to not only sorcerer's forces, but also the routine, bloodthirsty mercenary sources that ramped the whole end of Italy from one end to the other during the whole of the Renaissance. And there are some scenes in here that you will never forget. The scene in here where Damiano learns the true cost of the magic that he can do will stick with you forever. Just forever. And some of the tossed off lines, I'm a big fan of angels in fiction. Big fan of that, of how different authors handle that. And some of Raphael's lines here are really good. And then Raphael gets his own book later on. But I don't have them. I just have the one book. I'll have to wait to find the rest of them. Oh, I have them as ebooks. Okay, then we have Sterling Lanier. He did some post-apocalyptic novels that are a little bit on the stodgy side, but very well imagined, very good. Starring his main character, Hero Destine, Hiero, Hero Destine, who's in this future, he is an itinerant monk warrior, and we have him in the Unforsaken Hero with a giant slug there. We had all kinds of giant mutated animals in the Unforsaken Hero, and also my favorite of the books, Hero's Journey. There he is with his giant morse, a combination of horse and moose, Klutz, they are in telepathic bond with each other. Klutz is significantly smarter than a normal moose. That wouldn't be hard. And Klutz is also absolutely deadly, physically, which is definitely true of moose. And that's about the right size, too. There's nothing mutated about that. North American moose get enormously big. But I have Hero's Journey, which I love. I fell in love with this. I actually read this one before I read The Unforsaken Hero or Under Mirkwood. And I have a second copy of it just in case, because these things are never going to be reprinted. I'm never going to see them again. I don't think that the Hero to Steam books were ever issued in hardcover. I've never seen them, anyway, myself. I would love Hero's Journey in a more durable format than this. I think I have it as an ebook, but I would love it in a more durable print and paper volume, and I don't have it. Don't think I ever will. Okay, then we have Kenneth Flint. He also did a lot of books. He did a lot of fantasy that's very appealingly based on Irish mythology and Irish folklore. I don't know if this is another case of me just being imprinted with him. I read this book first, A Storm Upon Ulster, which is the story of the cattle raid of Cooley, only told as a fantasy novel. And it's terrific, just terrific. I read it and loved it back in the 1980s. Is that right? 1981. I have a double of it. I have 2 copies of this one. And I don't know if maybe it was just that this book imprinted me. I read everything else that he wrote. He wrote a lot of other books, and I read them. None of them quite worked on me the way this one did. This one strikes me as truly good. Okay, then we have Kirk Mitchell. What are these? You're all wandering all around me, darlings. You're wandering all around. Oh my God, we don't want that. How did that happen? No, we don't want you to be wandering all around. All right, well, we can fix it. That's what the whole library tour thing is for. Kirk Mitchell, among many other things, did an alternate history, science fiction, in which Rome never fell, in which there was no splitting into East and West, in which there was no degradation. Instead, Rome stayed a world-straddling superpower, just enhanced its technology, etc., etc. And the first of these books is called Procurator. And there we have a motorized Roman gunboat. You see that? So those of you who know what Roman triremes, what their warships look like on the water, well, this one has treads, and it's in the snowbound northern latitudes. And Procurator is fantastic. Just incredible. And fortunately, I have 2 copies of it, because, again, like a lot of these things that I'm showing you, I mean, not Larry Niven, things, Edgar Rice Burroughs, you're always going to be able to find all kinds of versions and editions of those. But the rest of these things, Damiano, no. Kirk Mitchell, I don't think even graduated to the Science Fiction Book Club. I'm pretty sure that his books have never existed in hardcover. And so I grabbed all of them that I can. We have the New Barbarians. Here we have a motorized, you've got a gun deck up there, a motorized Roman warship, but you've got the ziggurats of the Aztecs and the Toltecs in the background there, as this takes place in the New World. And also Cry Republic with an airship, a primitive Roman biplane. I have 2 copies of this. Those are all that Kirk Mitchell wrote. I'm pretty sure that he stopped his New Rome series with just 3 books. If there's a 4th one, I'd love to know about it, but I've never seen it in the wild. Okay, then we have 2 copies of a great old thing from the comic book world. In the comic book world, Action Comics had a gigantic milestone. They reached a number of milestones. DC Comics usually didn't pay much attention to number milestones, but they did for this one. And the idea of Action Comics number 500 was, let's tell Superman's story. Let's make a canonical telling of his story. The first half of that issue, which I have somewhere, is that story. It's the story of let's just retell Superman's story. Pull together all the threads and put it in one narrative. Written by Marty Pasco with artwork by Kurt Swan. And I loved it. There is a story in the issue. It's not just that. Of course, Lex Luthor strikes for Action Comics number 500. But I love the story. I loved the version of it. And they put it out as a book, the Superman story, which is just Action Comics number 500. See, there is... it's just Action Comics number 500, reprinted with a couple of panels here and there. And amazingly, because I have the Brattle Bookshop, I found 2 copies of that, so I'm holding on to them. Then we have, to finish this up, so I was right. We are going to get through this in relatively short order. None of these are going to be short. This is Robert Stallman. He's fantastic, and I especially love the books he did, his take on the werewolf story. The first one was The Orphan, with this gorgeous cover, just amazing cover. And then he followed it up with The Captive and the Beast. These were all Timescape books in the end. I wish that I could find a copy of The Orphan with the Timescape logo. The first paperback was issued right before it was adopted by Timescape, but the first copy of this that I read was a Timescape book. This little logo here, those of you who are young will not know it, but it was virtually a guarantee that you were going to get extremely well-curated fantasy or fiction or science fiction. It was almost a guarantee of that. Certainly for me, by the time I was accustomed to Timescape, I bought the new ones without knowing what they were, which almost never happens. That almost never happens. Once upon a time, that was a common thing. Once upon a time, in my extreme youth, for instance, I would buy a W.W. Norton book. I didn't care what it was. I knew that I was going not by the author or the subject matter, but by the acumen of the editors. The editorial team had never let me down, so I wasn't going to care. And the same thing was definitely true with Timescape. Definitely. The group that they had, the editorship that they had, was never going to let you down. Almost never. And I wish that I know that I will eventually find this in that format, but these are so good. They are so good. And that's it. That is bookcase number 2, shelf number 3, subsection A. So we got through it in under 30 minutes, just barely. So I'm going to wrap this up and denumb myself, and we'll go on next time. Thank you, BookTube.